This episode is a companion to my LinkedIn article. Quality is free, chaos is extremely expensive. You can find the link to the article in the episode description. Some management books age very badly. You open them 30, 40, or 50 years later, and they sound like they were written for a factory floor, where someone is smoking next to a forklift and calling it leadership. But Philip Crosby's book, Quality is Free, is strange. Some parts feel very old, some parts feel very corporate, and some parts feel like they were written for product teams, engineering managers, editors, and AI teams last Tuesday. The title itself sounds almost ridiculous today. Quality is free? Really? Try saying that to a product team buried under technical debt, or to a newsroom fixing a broken embed at midnight, or to an engineering manager explaining why another rushed release created 3 new incidents and 1 very expensive rollback. But Crosby did not mean that quality cost nothing. His real point was sharper than that. Quality is not the expensive part. The absence of quality is the expensive part. And this idea has aged much better than many modern management slogans. Let's be honest, every organization says it cares about quality. Almost nobody says, our strategy is to create fragile systems, confuse users, exhaust teams, and spend money fixing preventable problems. But many organizations behave exactly that way. They reward speed, visible urgency, heroic recovery, chaotic multitasking, and people who can jump into a crisis at 11 p.m. and save the day. And yes, sometimes those people are genuinely valuable. But here is the uncomfortable part. Some careers are built on solving problems that should never have existed in the first place. For years, I have had a slightly provocative theory about work. The right kind of lazy person often produces better work on the first attempt, not the careless kind of lazy, not the person who avoids responsibility. I mean experienced, intelligent laziness, the kind that hates repetition. It hates explaining the same thing 15 times. It hates manual work that could be automated. It hates fixing the same bug again and again. It hates meetings that exist only because nobody designed the process properly in the first place. That kind of laziness quietly optimizes for permanence. These people document things because they do not want late-night calls. They automate workflows because manual repetition irritates them. They design cleaner architecture because they do not want an emergency rewrite in 6 months. They ask one extra question before building because they know that one vague requirement today can become 3 weeks of rework later. In other words, they invest in quality not because they are perfectionists, but because chaos is too much work. This is where Crosby's old manufacturing logic becomes surprisingly modern. In the 1970s, he was talking about factories, defects, warranties, scrap, inspections, and rework. The world was industrial. The defective product was physical. You could point at it, you could count it, you could see the broken part sitting somewhere in a warehouse. Today the factories are different. They are platforms, APIs, mobile apps, CMS workflows, analytics pipelines, AI systems, cloud infrastructure, and recommendation engines. But the defects are still there. They just became harder to see. Today's scrap is not metal waste on a factory floor. It is engineering time lost to regressions. It is product managers running alignment meetings about problems that should have been solved structurally. It is support teams manually correcting broken workflows. It is editors creating private workarounds because the CMS logic does not match the real editorial process. It is developers fixing rushed integrations at 2 a.m. because we'll clean it up later somehow became an operating model. The problem is not the roadmap itself. The problem is when the roadmap becomes a machine for borrowing from the future. We ship now, we clean later, we integrate now, we stabilize later, we launch now, we document later. We accept the workaround now, we redesign later. And then later becomes never until the system becomes so fragile that every new feature costs more than it should. At that point, the organization is no longer building a product, it is paying interest on old shortcuts. One of Crosby's most controversial ideas was zero defects. Today, that phrase makes many people uncomfortable. It sounds unrealistic. It sounds authoritarian. It sounds like someone from a quality department putting a slogan on the wall and then blaming the team when reality disagrees. And in software, of course, bugs are inevitable. In product work, uncertainty is inevitable. In AI systems, probabilistic behavior is part of the system itself. So no, the goal is not magical perfection, but Crosby's point was not really about perfection. It was about normalization. That distinction matters. A bug is one thing. A culture that accepts the same bug forever is another. A failed deployment is one thing. A deployment process that regularly fails in the same predictable way is another. A confusing workflow is one thing. A company that forces every team to adapt to the confusion for years is another. Many organizations build folklore around recurring problems. Everyone knows the unreliable report. Everyone knows the feature that fails under load. Everyone knows the dashboard that cannot be trusted. Everyone knows which process requires 3 private messages, 2 spreadsheets, and one person named Michael who just knows how it works. Eventually, the workaround becomes more stable than the actual system. And when that happens, quality is not a technical issue anymore. It is an organizational issue. This is why I think Crosby would probably dislike parts of modern startup culture. Not because of technology, not because of speed itself. Speed can be good, fast learning can be good, small iterations can be good. The problem is the mythology of speed. Move fast and break things sounds exciting until you remember that somebody has to maintain the broken things. Usually 2 years later, with half the original team gone, no clear ownership, and documentation that looks like it was discovered by archaeologists. At the same time, we should be fair. Some things have changed for the better since the 1970s. Quality management used to be much more centralized. Committees, formal programs, quality departments, slogans, structured initiatives. Today, in good organizations, quality is more embedded into how work actually happens. Automated tests, CI/CD pipelines, observability, incident management, feature flags, telemetry, DevOps culture, SRE practices. A lot of modern engineering is basically automated quality management, just wearing a hoodie instead of a necktie. And Crosby's idea that quality must start at the top also needs a modern translation. Leadership still matters a lot, but quality does not come only from executive speeches or values printed on internal slides. Quality comes from systems. It comes from incentives, architecture, tooling, staffing, communication patterns, deployment habits, decision rights, and trust. If leadership demands speed but never funds maintenance, quality will suffer. If teams are punished for slowing down to prevent incidents, they will learn to hide risk. If roadmaps leave no room for cleanup, cleanup will not happen. Culture is not what leaders say about quality. Culture is what the system makes easy or hard. Now, AI makes all of this even more important. AI lowers the cost of producing things quickly. That is useful, but it also lowers the cost of producing bad things quickly. Hallucinated summaries, unreliable automations, weak synthetic content, broken AI workflows, low-quality generated code, invisible errors at scale. The potential rework is enormous. The old industrial defect was often visible and repeatable. The new AI defect can be probabilistic. It may appear only in certain cases, certain languages, certain prompts, certain users, or certain workflows. That makes prevention even more important, not less. Here is an example. Imagine a team adds an AI summarization tool to an editorial workflow. At first, it looks successful. It saves time. People like the demo, the dashboard shows usage, then small problems appear. One summary slightly distorts the tone, another misses important context, another becomes too confident about something uncertain. Editors begin checking every output manually, then they create private rules, then support questions start, then standards gets involved, then product and engineering add approval layers, warnings, settings, logs, and exception handling. Suddenly, the thing that was supposed to save time has created a new quality control process around itself. The feature may still be useful, but the real cost was never just implementation. The real cost was operational trust. The counter-argument is obvious. If we obsess too much about quality, we can become slow, bureaucratic, and afraid to ship. That is true. Quality can become an excuse for paralysis. Some teams do hide behind process. Some organizations use "we need more quality" as a polite way to avoid decisions. So the answer is not to stop moving. The answer is to understand the difference between productive speed and expensive speed. Productive speed creates learning. Expensive speed creates cleanup. Productive speed reduces uncertainty. Expensive speed transfers risk to another team, another quarter, or another budget line. What I would watch next is not whether companies talk more about quality. They already do that. I would watch where the cost of poor quality appears in the organization. Does it appear in engineering as rework, in support as tickets, in editorial as manual correction, in product as endless coordination, in leadership as delayed strategy, in finance as cloud cost, vendor cost, or missed opportunity? Poor quality rarely stays where it was created. It travels. And because it travels, organizations often fail to count it properly. That brings us back to Crosby's original argument from the late 1970s. Prevention is cheaper than correction. Still true, not because humans became wiser, not because technology made complexity disappear, but because every shortcut eventually sends an invoice. It may arrive later, it may arrive in another department, it may appear under another budget line, it may be explained by another PowerPoint presentation, but it arrives. So no, quality is not literally free. But compared with chaos, it is often the cheapest thing you will ever buy. The full version of this argument is in my LinkedIn article. Quality is free. Chaos is extremely expensive. The link is available in the episode description. I would be interested to hear how this looks from your side. In your organization, where does the real cost of poor quality appear? In engineering, product, support, editorial, leadership, or somewhere nobody wants to measure?